But essentially, we're gonna be taking the beautiful Eden from this to this. So let's snap to it and get back to the beginning. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to detail out a hairline to make it look like it's growing out of the hairline. So I wanna create something that's gonna just blend really softly as it grows out to where she never really has this super hard line of demarcation. So when you're analyzing a hairline, you really want to look at all of the inconsistencies of that hairline. So when I say inconsistencies, it's because nobody's hairline's just straight like this or a straight angle here, right? There's always these little things that you want to kind of detail away before you have a really solid line. So for her, it's here. I can see she has some baby hairs here on the side, right? That I'm gonna wanna tackle. Because what happens is if I put something really bold right behind those areas, what I do is I put an emphasis on those areas. You know, it's almost like creating this strong backdrop that makes this look even darker. And also if you go in and you just put a foil here in the hairline and you're squishing this back, you're going to end up having depth right there. So I am gonna go through, detail out that, detail out over here, and then as I work through the side, just here and here, there's gonna be a couple of little inconsistencies that I'm going to slice as well. So the thing is if her hair was a level 8 and above, I could just tackle all that hair and just balayage it, but because it's not and it's darker, if I did a quick balayage at the bowl to kind of incorporate all those hairs, it would be very warm, and we're going for something as cool as we can possibly get it. So I can literally just go in and kind of form the foil to the parting rather than the other way around. I think that it's nice to have all of that flex within your foil because you're able to kind of get something that like squishes up perfectly to your parting. So right here, I'm just marrying her hairline. And I'm keeping it ultra fine because even though these are little baby hairs and they'll lighten up really quick. So what I will do is I'll even pop this foil out, say it's done processing. Say I finish all of the foil set and it's done processing, I'll just pop it out right away so that it doesn't over process because that would not be good. I want her to be able to pull her hair back and look like it's growing out of her head that way. And especially when you're like making somebody from platinum to something that's like a little bit softer, when they still feel really platinum right there, when they lift their head up, I feel like it helps their transition, you know? Those little bitty hairs make a huge difference. And when you pay such close attention to detail right off the bat, I really feel like that's kind of how you gain a client for life, is when you start to introduce things to them that, oh my gosh, no one's ever done that on my head of hair before. So that's why we work kind of organically around the hairline like that. And especially, this is the area that has the most, I would say, depth, unwanted depth, is right here in this little corner. So I remove these little inconsistencies. And they're gonna get their own little baby foil. And I wanna show you guys how to do this foil because I typically have them pre-cut already, but it's something that I think is really valuable to know. So it's the same, basically measurements, just in mini size of your regular foil. So you're gonna take your standard size foil and then cut it in half this way. And I always use my fingernail as like a preparation for that. So I'll just cut that in half that way. And then if they have longer hairs, you can keep it like this. But typically for those little baby hairs, if you fold that foil into 4s, it's the same kind of like, it literally is like foil measurements, but in miniature form, which who doesn't love something mini? It's so cute. So heavy weave pickup, which means what I'm leaving out is less depth. And then the next one is a little more depth. And these are all like, seem like, you know, kind of like an intense way to do things because it's so detailed, but it really does create a certain effect when you're done. Like there is a softness to it, you know? And my goal is always to think about having less to shadow tone afterwards, if that makes sense. Like I want something that has longevity. And so when you create something that the bones of the structure are like there and that's what you want to see, then it's a lot easier. Later on when you go to tone it, you're like, wow, we could literally just put a gloss on this. Okay, so now that we've detailed out the whole hairline, you can part their hair and kind of envision, like if this is going to be the boldest part, how you're going to creep further and further away from that, and how to kind of create that really softness. So I want the baby lights to be all the way to her root because I'm going to barely shadow tone them afterwards. So what it's going to do is more so than me traveling slowly away from her root, I'm going to just make the spacing a little further, a little further, a little further. And I'm also going to be looking at what's going on in the ends of her hair right here now, because she was pretty solid blonde on the underneath. So now the underneath, I'm just looking at the ends, if there's anything I need to paint. And yeah, that low light doesn't really reach. It's still pretty bold through there. There also might start already being some line of demarcation areas that I'm going to have to shadow tone away a little bit. See, I am going to have to, I'm not at the point where I want to shadow tone any of this away because I want that root depth, but I am going to have to balayage a little bit of those ends. So I'll just give it a good tease right here so that it kind of breaks up that line of demarcation. The thing is you kind of have to give it a couple passes because it's such a fine, tiny little section that you like, you know, I kind of have to like go in and really like get any kind of tease to stay. And so I'm going to do kind of like that inverted V or like A shape. So it goes from most brightness to kind of a little less, little less. Again, just getting the most clarity I can on those little baby ends because it makes a difference. It keeps it from stopping like so abruptly right there around her face. Okay, now that I'm at this point, I just took a center parting and then I just went from where I left off here straight down. And so what that's going to give me is this little bit of a transitional area through here as well to go from tighter together to remind myself to, okay, now I'm going to go a little further, a little further, a little further apart. Cool? So if I so wanted to, I could go in and detail out around here and around here because that's still the hairline. And so if she wore her hair up in a high pony, it would just be all blonde. But because I'm incorporating more and more depth, I feel like it would actually look a little bit awkward if I went in and detailed all of that out solid blonde, and then this right behind it has like a lot more depth incorporated. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just not gonna have to do that right now. But if you were doing this more blonde and less of the depth or painting the natural back in, then you could go straight from there and detail out the entire hairline before moving on, which is exactly what I'm going to do. Now we have another model and I just wanted to show you around the nape area. Essentially, I could break this into two sections, one above her ear and then one at that diagonal back that I am doing if I was going really tight and close to her hairline, but I'm leaving just a small amount of root depth through this back area of Becca's hairline. I really wanted you guys to see that from that front hairline, that blonde goes in two diagonal backs from right in the middle all the way down around through the back underneath part of the hairline. And that's what's going to give you that big halo burst of blonde all coming through the underneath and around her face. So now with Becca, I can actually skip some of those highlights because I'm doing a little bit more of a foliage placement where it looks a bit more like balayage with her hairline detailed out. So within my painting pattern, I've got the bones of something structurally really solid so that I don't have to shadow tone anything away. And I'm not just slicing every single section. By actually incorporating these diagonal backs in between my sectioning, it's going to look like that bold burst of blonde through the ends is coming out of nowhere because it starts with that little fine slice and then all of a sudden it has this transition that you're not really sure how it's happening into that bold money piece around her face. Honestly, that's the whole key right there. I'm really just letting the technique be the technique and do what it's doing. And you can see how by doing the hairline detail, we have that really pretty hairline that's completely, you know, popped out, and she can wear it any which way and it'll look great. But it also kind of just really has this beautiful way that it gradiently goes from that solid, just that more of a slice into those baby lights and creates that little halo of depth over top. And then those diagonal backs that we painted in between the foils gave us that really pretty burst of blonde all around the hairline. And the low lights that we placed in here are helping that backdrop and pop those little pieces in the front and around her hairline.